Agenda, so we're actually, these are the board of directors with the West Dakota Water Development District, and we really appreciate everybody coming here to share your ideas with us as we go through the agenda today. So we're going to be actually conducting business. A few housekeeping things. As you take your turn to speak, we have a microphone over here at the end of this table, and we are going to be recording this meeting as just a regular meeting, so when you come forward and speak, identify yourself and who you're associated with. There's a lot of people here today, and I know there's going to be several presenters here, so we would like to limit your talk to your speech to about 7 minutes, and just in consideration of time. If anybody here has time constraints today and needs to leave early, let us know and we'll let you speak first. Other than that, we think probably this first session we can get through in about 2 hours and take a break, and then come back for the second session around 3 o'clock. So with that, again, thanks for coming, and I'll call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone can stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could remain standing, we're going to have a short invocation by Director Bialotta, please.
Lord, thank you for this day, and let us all reflect that 75 years ago, the invasion into France to liberate Europe started. So I'd like to ask everybody to please keep veterans and active duty military in your hearts. Many of those came back injured, and some never came home at all. And they deserve our thanks and our praise. In the Lord's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Mr. Maloney, if you could call the roll, please.
Cohen?
Yes.
Bjerke?
Here.
Driscoll?
Here.
Jovic? Rollinger?
Here.
Williams?
Here.
Mack?
Here.
Bialotta?
Here.
Harris?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you.
You're under absent.
Just for everybody's information, we're not going to be taking any action on any items today at all. It's just mainly a listening session, and our next meeting is going to be in July. If there's something that needs to move forward out of this meeting, we'll be taking it up at that meeting. The next item is the approval of the agenda as proposed. Is there a motion?
I would like to amend the agenda, and right before, after 5, but before 6, a small 5-minute public comment period, so that we are within guidelines of the open meetings law.
We do have it at the end.
It's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda?
Not on the agenda.
That was not on the one we voted on, so that didn't have that.
Oh, okay. So,
Would be item 6.
what time is
Item 5A.
item 5A?
I'll second.
Okay, motion was made to add an item for public comment, seconded by Dan Driscoll. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, at this point...
I'd like to move to approve the amended agenda.
Okay.
Sure.
Motion to approve the amended agenda by Tom.
Second.
Seconded by Dan Driscoll. Any discussion?
Comment, Mr.
One comment.
Is there going to be any opportunity for the directors to speak in this at all? Normally we have a director's session where you come back, get a chance to either finalize or thank the people for coming, that sort of thing.
We don't have it on the agenda.
Yeah, no, you don't. And I was wondering,
Well, I think we've got a lot of people here today, and we're going to be running. We're trying to have our meeting run
so do we
about
have
4 hours.
questions then after each one of the speakers? Is that the way it's going to work?
Good question.
That's open to everybody. Questions are open to anybody and everybody.
Okay. Does that answer your question then, or?
Thank you.
Is that okay? Okay. So we have a motion. Did we have a second for the
Yep.
motion? Second. Okay, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Director Driscoll.
Public comment. Public comment.
Oh, gotcha. We do have an item 5 here, conflict of interest. Is there any items on the agenda today for the directors that would have to be a conflict of interest?
I'll just disclose that many people know I'm retired from USGS, but back in a part-time appointment. There are several of the ideas that have been submitted by USGS. If we were voting, I couldn't vote on them. Given that this is informational, I don't see it as a conflict, but I want to disclose that.
Okay, very good. Is there any other conflicts? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 5A, public, items from the public. Are there any? Seeing none? We'll move on then to item 6.
Mr. Chair?
Was there, yes?
I'd like to speak on behalf of the public. I had a request from some people that could not be here.
Okay.
They're having some serious issues with Rapid City sewer systems, and they will be coming to the board to ask for assistance and going after the city for flooding their homes with sewer water
At our July meeting?
in the July meeting, yes.
Okay.
So some of these people, I'm hearing horror stories, myself included, was one of the homes that was backed up. My neighbors unfortunately had it much worse. They had over 3 feet of water, and the water started in an electrical fire, and the city has condemned their house, and they have nowhere to go.
So they'll be coming to our,
They will be coming to the July meeting.
so I guess I would suggest that they get on the agenda then at that meeting.
Yep.
If you know.
But just for public comment, I wanted it aired because they asked that I'd speak about it if I could.
Okay, sure. So noted. Anything else then? Seeing none, we will move on in agenda number 6. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Director Driscoll, who's going to moderate this session.
Well, I'll first just give a little bit of background on how this meeting came to mind. Several months ago, a person come up to me and said, maybe something for West Dakota to consider would be a more strategic approach to the sort of projects you've become involved in, and maybe you should find some way to, determine what your priorities are and the like. And I said, well, it's kind of odd, but just a couple of days ago, it come to mind to have a listening session and have ideas brought to us might be something useful. Kind of what spawned that, in working with USGS, there had been several occasions where I'd attended basically brainstorming sessions hosted by South Dakota Department of Transportation, their research program. And they'd have people bring ideas in, and it's a pretty effective process for getting ideas on the table. So as this idea began to develop, another perspective, a personal perspective of mine began to develop that, West Dakota really doesn't manage any water or have any responsibility for water for the most part. It's primarily stakeholders that are out there, be it the City of Rapid City, the Pennington County Conservation District, the Forest Service, Game Fish and Parks. It's basically everybody else out there that manages the water or is responsible for it. For the most part, the only water that West Dakota really needs is a couple quarts a month for people to drink at our meetings. And so I got to thinking, really, if we're going to have an idea session, we really ought to bring the stakeholders, to the table to hear these ideas. And basically that's the first half of this session. We'll call it just a listening session, an idea session, and then in the second half, it's really kind of a roundtable session. But I think a big part of the purpose is to ask the question: how can we bring these different partners to the table? If West Dakota's looking at funding projects, really all that West Dakota has is tax dollars. We're a taxing entity, we have taxing authority, but it's really the other stakeholders are out there that have the priorities. And so rather than West Dakota really funding projects individually, a better model is to be trying to bring more and more stakeholders, the appropriate stakeholders, to the table. And one good example, the Game and Fish fellows are here today, and we're on schedule. Plans are to begin the dredging operation on Canyon Lake here this fall, and that's a partnership between Game Fish and Parks, West Dakota, City, Rapid City, and that's fly fishermen also. And that's a good example of bringing the multiple partners to the table. So that's really the impetus for this, to really gather ideas and have these stakeholders have a chance to listen to the ideas too. And where it'll go, I don't really conceptually haven't thought out what we will do next, other than get these ideas, begin to digest them and talk about it, and see if some of these ideas don't kind of rise to the top as higher priorities, and go from there. So that's kind of the background on it. And
there's a packet, and I think we're probably out of it, you're going to have to share it, but in the packet there's several ideas for proposals from different organizations. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, but and I don't know if anybody brought one with them. We did have a cutoff, but we're obviously here to listen. So, if you want to get a packet, there's some of these proposals included in the packet. We don't have enough for everybody here. There's a lot of. We're glad this many people showed up. So if you could share, it'd be great.
There's a pile.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
No, I was saying there's a
pile over there, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well,
probably need to share a little bit, but
help yourself.
get them spread out, and let's make use of them.
So there's a pile.
And please make sure you've signed in, and it helps if you can make yourself a little name teepee or put one on your shirt in case we're wandering the hallways. It's nice to be able to identify people and not go, I know you. Beyond that, are there any questions we'd need to address as far as how we'll go about things? It'll be, pretty informal. I'd asked Linda to keep track of time. We kind of arbitrarily said, well, let's give people 5 minutes and then 2 minutes for questions, and if you end up using your question time, speaking fine. And I think the amount of material we've got, it'll work out about right. So we'll know it when we see it, but the idea is to keep it short and just get the ideas on the table, and what will come of them will come later.
See if somebody's. I think there's a couple that do have time constraints that they want to start.
Anybody with time constraints needs to get out of here early on.
Lisa? Said she did. Anybody else? We'll get you.
And I think we've got you pretty close to the front on this. So
okay.
If that'll work out, we'll just go through them in the order that they're listed in. Then, and the first one is an idea that I had submitted, and we'd actually sent it around as an example, and so people have had time to see it. I'm not going to elaborate on it a lot, but the gist of the idea is to basically put together a group and look at developing a proposal for the SWARMS program. SWARMS is the acronym for State Water Resources Management System that's administered under South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And this is a mechanism by which DENR could bring funding to the table. And the idea is that this would be for a comprehensive effort of addressing water quality issues along Rapid Creek. Part of the background, several months ago, we had a couple of proposals that were brought to West Dakota, for funding consideration for, a couple of bacteria-related studies, and as it turned out, we did not vote to move forward on those. There's a lot of interest, but at that point in time, we had West Dakota and Rapid City had identified at least preliminary plans to participate in funding, contingent on approval from their city council. But we're always basically short DENR as a stakeholder because they really don't have a mechanism to fund things like this. And as I scratched my head, I said, well, why why don't we look at this as a possibility? This was the mechanism under which the Black Hills hydrology study was funded by DENR. That had been a long-term project that basically involved 25% funding from West Dakota and other local entities, 25% from the SWARMS program, and then USGS was the technical entity involved with that, and they put up dollar for dollar cost share. And so, a very effective way to basically put together a large and long-term funding package. And it occurs to me that perhaps this could be an appropriate mechanism also. So I kind of threw that out as just an idea, as an umbrella, and what we'd intended to do then was, there are anything that basically has a feel of water quality in Rapid Creek or water quality elsewhere has kind of been grouped just behind that. And so whether or not we would proceed with trying to formulate such a proposal would be something that would happen between now and then. Basically, these proposals, I believe I probably put it in here, are due October 1st, I think. It's either that or September 1st. I'm thinking October, but we'll look more closely at that. The process also involves, you have to be on the state water plan in essence with, you have to have something that's basically approved as a possibility. If that's the case, then once your idea is submitted as a proposal, is considered by the South Dakota Board of Water Management Board, is it?
Water and Natural Resources.
Yeah. Basically, they decide what projects to suggest for funding, and then it goes to the legislature for funding under their omnibus process. So there's kind of a mechanism there, but it in essence qualifies. There is a category that's been listed on the basically the State Water Facilities Plan, I believe, and for basically studies of hydrology and water management in South Dakota. So basically we've got a placeholder that qualifies us, and if there's if this would turn out to be something that grows legs, this is something we might proceed with a proposal on. So I think I'll just stop there in terms of my overview on it, and if there's any questions, we could take time for a question or two, and then we could kind of continue moving down the list. So any questions on this concept? I guess everybody read it, and it's relatively straightforward.
I mean, Mike Perkovich was out here at our last meeting, and because we're all pretty much new board members here and weren't familiar with the program, and Dan was more familiar with it than anybody. But anyway, he kind of went over how the program works, and there's a lot of flexibility on funding in that program if you have a water quality type of project available. Yeah, did you want to?
Yeah. And did you prioritize the different types of activities from agriculture and urban runoff? The 8 mile reach of Rapid Creek from the bottom of Canyon Lake to the East St. Patrick Street Bridge, that was a water quality study that we looked at, DNA study, and that's going to be one of the bigger problems I think we have. I mean, I was wondering if you have a prioritized list of how you would top to bottom, or is that going to be driven by the taxpayers? Or?
Well, I've laid out nothing more than kind of a conceptual approach that SWARMS could be a good mechanism for a comprehensive effort regarding water quality in Rapid Creek. I think it's basically a foregone conclusion that urban runoff is by far the most detrimental thing we have relative to water quality in Rapid Creek, and so that reach is, maybe I shouldn't say offhand it's the most, but it's certainly one of the biggest factors we deal with. And so I think that would certainly be one of the priority areas.
Yeah, and I would like to make sure that we have health and safety first, as opposed to the stream's going to become healthier as we make it healthier. And it's just so obvious that we have one block where we need 3 or 4 places to help find the contamination source. that's something that maybe some of the people here hadn't heard. And that would be what I'd like to hear from some of our stakeholders as well, sometime down the road. So I agree with the idea. Thanks.
That's time.
Our 7 minutes is up. It's time to move on. So I guess the next one is aquatic ecology and integrated watershed management. Lisa Kunza from South Dakota School of Mines. And can you come over to the mic so that we hate to burden you that way, but we want to record this, and that's the only way it'll make it feasible. We will have minutes of this meeting, but they'll be very succinct. It'll really represent who talked, and will capture the title and the people involved. And beyond that, if people want to hear more, they can listen to the recording that'll be available on the internet.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm going to start out introducing myself because I don't know it. I know a lot of the people in the room, but I don't know everybody. And so I'm Dr. Lisa Kunza. I am an associate professor in the chemistry and applied biological sciences department at School of Mines. I'm an aquatic ecologist, and I've been at School of Mines for about 7 years. And this is Dr. Kurt Chwanski, who is a research scientist that works with me. Okay, so we better get moving now. I didn't want to submit a whole bunch of separate ideas, and so you'll see here that we just kind of listed some of the things that are more priorities in our mind as we have developed projects or tangential projects associated with it currently. So starting off, spatial and temporal nutrient dynamics. There are many states that are working on developing nutrient standards and understanding the processes that our creeks and rivers can give us. For example, nutrient uptake. If we look at what's going on currently, then if there becomes pollution problems in the future, we know what we're trying to get back towards. But without that, we are starting at ground zero at that point in time. And so we would be happy to contribute to anything associated with developing nutrient criteria in the state of South Dakota, and looking at nutrient dynamics in any of the creeks. I have been funded previously to look at Didymo Sphenia gemnata not distribution, but aspects of Didymo and how that influences the macroinvertebrate community in Rapid Creek. And one of my master's students a few years back completed his work on that, and it becomes clear that maybe flow regulation would be one mechanism, but we need to understand the distribution, the thickness, many aspects associated with Didymo to be able to understand whether or not flow adjustments could help reduce the problem in Rapid Creek. And then bacteria, I've also been funded by the board associated with DNA projects looking at pathogenicity of bacteria previously. I think that one of the avenues, we could potentially continue down that avenue and do more of the molecular side of things. To me, it is developing that health risk assessment that you're talking about. But just one idea that I want to throw out there associated with that is, if you have bacteria in the water and the water is impaired and you want to know whether or not it came from humans, maybe the initial source is humans, but we don't know whether or not the bacterial community that is resident in the sediment ever goes away in Rapid Creek. And so to me, that should be a priority of understanding whether or not the conditions are appropriate in which the bacterial community in the sediments decrease. at any given point as well. So, and I think that ties into the source tracking as well as looking at the health risk, developing a health risk assessment, particularly associated with the bacteria. The next bullet there, predicting future Black Hills hydrology. I think if we don't embrace our climatological friends and understand how climate modeling, particularly for the Black Hills region, because it is different the way that the climate system works here, and incorporate that into what precipitation, what might we be seeing, as we are obviously getting large swings over the last few years. So understanding how those fluctuations in precipitation and air temperature influence stream flow and water availability. And I'm going to turn it over to her.
Hi, well, that's really great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate this opportunity. The next 5 are related to all of these, and the assessing relationships between stream water temperatures and stream flow. This gets at something that may or may not be affecting fish populations in Rapid Creek, and estimating or evaluating fish population dynamics along Rapid Creek, as Game Fish and Park has been counting the fish and measuring them for quite some time. And it would be useful to understand how those things have changed over time and look at it along the creek longitudinally. And as of yet, there aren't any reports that link those things. There's one from Dan James in 2010 that looks at drought being a factor of fish populations. So moving on, it would be great to utilize all the data that they've collected since, the early 90s. Essentially through the present. And in Rapid Creek, that's some 317 fish counts. So it would be useful to look at those things. Developing stream habitat project maps, that feeds into other considerations where Game Fish and Parks, the board, we've done a lot of work to improve riparian buffers, do in-stream habitat projects, deal with valves, and it would be great to understand whether those things were effective at doing what we said they were supposed to be doing. So while Game Fish and Parks has that data available on all those, as of yet, that's not publicly available and would really help us understand past management actions and consider future ones that we might take. Characterizing aquatic food resources available for fish and wildlife. That's both for recreationally important fish species, but also for native fish species that are there. And then the final one of characterizing basic stream morphology. We know very little about the width, depth, slope, and canopy cover along the creek from the headwaters through, even all the way through town. We might know a lot of detailed information about very, very small reaches. But that's essentially, so, yeah, thank you.
So did that use up all our time, Linda?
It did.
One quick question?
Sure.
Any quick questions out there?
I have a quick question. In regarding some of your research and testing of water and whatever else, have you considered the restoration of beaver dams, of beavers up creek so that they can filter that water through? I mean, how many beaver dams do we have? I know we used to have one over on the other side of Foundry Park there at the end, and they didn't sort that out. The research shows that beaver dams do help with the ecosystem. So one thing that we have all done in this urban area and up and down the creek is we have totally destroyed the natural ecosystem. So that might be part of restoration of, we want to restore the quality of Rapid Creek and the tributaries that come off of there. We might want to consider to allow some beavers to come back into our area. So.
And could you please identify yourself for the record?
My name is Carla Marshall. I'm with the Black Hills Clean Water Alliance. I'm a member of the Shiner Street Tribe, and I am a citizen of Rapid City. I am a longtime citizen here. And so, yeah.
Thanks, Carla.
Thank you.
So next on our list is Stu Geza. Come on up.
Okay, my name is Stu Geza. I'm an assistant professor at Civil and Environmental Engineering. So I have two ideas to talk about. May I come here?
You can help.
Okay.
I can see it, but you probably. I can see it. Oh, you think we should cut some of the light down? Can we adjust the light and all, or? Can everybody see that screen, or is it too
Dan,
light?
do you recall how to adjust the lights? They have a PhD in light adjustment that they normally have.
Look, it's not
Yeah, there.
Hey!
Everybody can see it. Hey!
all the way off.
Can I present from there or I should be here?
Do you want a little light or not? Will that work?
No, I mean, I'm fine.
Okay.
I want to change the
What
slides.
you gotta do is let go before they dim completely, or if you double tap, they'll come back on, I think. The left one. Or hold the top part of the left activator or switch.
Basically, there is no microphone. This is just so your voice will be recorded. But sure, go ahead. That'd be fine.
You want to go up there? Sure. You got a mic? Yeah, that's good. Is there a mic right there?
I can move one.
So the first,
Here, we'll let you use this one.
okay, thank you.
Just play it there. Pick you up, okay.
The first project idea is a decision support tool, and we are developing a decision support tool. This is we started a collaborative project with Colorado School of Mines and UC Berkeley, and we want to adapt or tailor that tool to Rapid City. So the tool has two components. One is a planning level tool. That the planning level tool tells you where in the watershed you can place waste management practices, BMPs. So effective design and placement is important because you can save a lot of cost for capital and maintenance and operation cost. So there has been a lot of other tools that have been developed. The best, our tool is relatively simple to use and computationally less intensive. So within a short period of time, somebody can be trained and can apply it. So the idea is you need to build a swim model for the watershed and then read those swim outputs, and then that file goes, you have to also have some basic data like cost of BMPs, performance of BMPs, and then that data goes into optimization model that we developed, and the optimization model generates the distribution of, effective distribution of BMPs over the watershed. So this is a planning level tool for planners to find out effective placement of waste management practices. We are using a small watershed in Rapid City, but this is applicable nationwide. And the second part of this tool is you go to a particular site and you want to design a base management practice. So it has several components to do that. It can estimate the hydrology of a site, runoff from a site, and based on that, you can design the size of your BMPs. So it has a hydrology module, but if you have estimate of runoff from other models, you can use our tool just to design the BMP. And it has a BMP selection tool. You go to a site and decide what the tool decides what kind of BMP is appropriate for that site. And the sizing component, it can be size ponds, reservoirs. It can size bioretention cells. All sorts of BMP can be designed using this tool. It can also design green roofs. And finally, it will tell you, based on that size, what is the cost of your BMP. Maintenance, capital, and operation cost. And UC Berkeley is developing a life cycle tool that can be integrated to this design tool, and we plan to integrate that too. But for now, we are using just capital and O&M cost. So what if we want to tailor this tool to Rapid City? We need to develop site-specific data to improve the accuracy of our tool. So we need water quality data from each land use, residential, construction, because water quality data varies from region to region. And we need also a PMP treatment performance data, and for that we need to identify some BMPs within Rapid City and monitor them to determine their performance. I need some water, sorry. Then we also need site-specific cost data. So if we get this data, we can tailor this tool, which is in fact designed for national. This is a national level tool, but we can tailor it to Rapid City. That's the goal of it. So the basic thing we need is the data here. We need monitoring data to tailor this tool to Rapid City. So that's the first part of my presentation. If you have questions, or should I go to the next one?
Any questions while we're paused here?
Question.
Has the city of Rapids signed off on following this plan?
I was in South Dakota, Colorado's Grove Mines before I came here, and with this idea was initiated there, so I brought the project with me. But since I'm here, I want to apply this is a national level tool, to Rapid City, because I can really go to sites and get data and improve my tool. That's the goal. So there is nothing that the city of Rapid City has signed so far.
Bob?
Is there, what type of data are you looking to try to collect from each of these sites? Just give us a brief rundown.
So for water quality data, land use, okay, it's not showing here. We have to collect suspended solids from residential sites, construction sites, commercial sites, or possible land use sites. So we need to collect metals, nutrients, those kind of data. Plus BMP performance. So we need to, how is the BMPs in Rapid City working? Are they efficient? Compare the same BMP compared to, for example, southern states. There are a lot of factors that affect performance, like temperature. So are they as effective as? There is a national basis, national database on BMP performance, but that's not accurate.
Well, I guess yours is the next one on the list also, right, Stu?
Yes.
Yep, so go right ahead with the next one.
And James has another question.
Excuse me, Dr. Souza, Giza.
Stu, James
I
has
have
another
one
question.
question. If the city of Rapid doesn't sign off on this plan, and I can speak to some history, a lot of the subdivisions in Rapid City were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they've been begging for stormwater drains for the last 20 to 30 years and still haven't gotten them. Why would we fund a study if the city's not going to implement it?
Perhaps I could address that one. That's really
The intent of